Good evening and welcome to tonight's conversation with the candidates presented by the League of Women Voters of Houston Education Fund. I'm Brandon Mack and I'm joined tonight with my co-host Greg Griffin. And tonight we are talking with the candidates running for U.S. Congressional District 29. The League of Women Voters of Houston is a nonpartisan organization, and all candidates who are currently running for this office have been invited to tonight's conversation. Tonight we're first joined by Rowell Garcia. Rowell, will you please give us a moment to learn a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, Brandon and Greg, it's great to be with y'all here this evening, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting something like this. This is great. The long and short of it is I'm running to represent my home here in Congressional District 29. I grew up here over off of Wayside and 45 South. I'm a product of the area. Grew up playing Little League and Little League football as well in the area. My father was an educator, a teacher at various elementary schools, and my family still has its home there. And I was blessed to go off to Columbia University and the University of Texas for law school, and I've been a practicing lawyer now in the Houston area for the last 6 years, doing civil litigation across the state of Texas, representing a lot of homeowners and good small business owners, the backbone to this country. And this opportunity arose. Our congressman of 25 years, Gene Green, decided to retire in November, and my friends and family approached me and said, well, you should think about this. This is an opportunity to serve your community, and you've been blessed in some of the things you've been able to experience. And I took some time and decided this community does deserve another option, a younger option, an energetic option, and somebody who will be ready on day one to serve them well. So that's the reason I'm before you, and we're a week out from the primary vote, and I'm excited for that.
Excellent. So Congress has struggled for some time now with how to tackle comprehensive immigration reform. What does the phrase mean to you, and what do you think should be the first step towards achieving that?
Sure. This is an area where both the right and the left can find some middle ground for to move this country forward. And I would love to help champion that when I get up there to Washington. What's at the top of everybody's mind right now is DACA and those young people who were brought here to this country by, not voluntarily. And so I would love to pass DACA. I would go up there and support something like DACA. But I take the position that Democrats need to negotiate harder. There are 11 million undocumented, and that's a low probably estimate, 11 million undocumented people in this country. They're not participating in our democratic system, civil society. They're outsiders. They're in the shadows. I think what's best for the country is to bring them out of the shadows, get them participating. So what I would do to negotiate with our negotiator-in-chief, President Trump, is to start from a better position. We want to bring everybody out of the shadows, okay? And if we need to find some compromise in the middle, let's work that way. But I think it's a big problem that we're not looking to solve that larger issue. And I will add this. I'm all for securing the border as well. I think that our friends in the Democratic Party would be for that. Let's find smart ways of securing the border, using technology. Let's figure out a cost-efficient way to do it. Let's not waste money on a border wall, but I'm all for that. If we need to reassess our quotas, let's assess what our global economy needs here in the United States and make a determination and get good input from our small and large business owners across the country. So I'm for both, and I think we can find some compromise to come to a good reform.
Excellent. Yeah.
Good. So as we know, recently the Department of Education has announced that it'll no longer investigate complaints of transgender students barred from high school restrooms that match their gender identity. What is your position on this?
Well, first of all, that's a shame, I think. That's the first reaction that I have to something like that. It reeks of politics as usual, and this administration continuing to play politics with people's lives and things that really affect especially our younger community there and students in the schools. So listen, as a person of color, and knowing my own history, there's a lot of groups in this country that have fought hard for their rights, for equal protection under the law, and this is another one of our communities, our friends, and our family that are enduring some steps backwards as a result of this administration. So if I was to go into Washington, the GLBTQ community, our transgender community especially, would have my support. I will have an office here in the Southeast, and I want these communities to be heard on these issues. So listen, my reaction is that I think the Trump administration is completely wrong on this, and they're rolling back the progress that we made under President Obama.
So, of course, one of the biggest issues on all our minds is what happened at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. What do you feel is the Congress's role when it comes to addressing gun violence in this country?
Congress's role is to protect the citizens of this country. And on this issue, we need to do a ban on guns like the AR-15s. It's time. Let's do a prohibition across the board. And I say that as a person who is a Texas hunter, someone who grew up learning how to handle a deer rifle, someone who has gone to courses to, here in Texas, we have laws where if you're going to hunt and be a licensed hunter, you've got to go to a course all day on a Saturday, or you've got to go after work for 4 days straight. It's no small task. And I think that we should require those types of things on the federal level. And it probably should be done either once a year or maybe once every 2 years, something along those lines. We need to have stringent measures as to gun ownership. I'm also for increasing the age of gun ownership to 21. I don't mind that. I know that's being kicked around right now. I would support something like that. But again, this is an area where we can get something done if we just reach across the aisle. And I think I'm a good candidate, or potential legislator to do that. And because I come from a place like Texas where we have a bit of a gun culture here. And like I said, I am a person who owns a gun, even for home protection. And I think that Democrats need to be a little bit louder about championing reasonable gun legislation, or I should say reasonable gun regulation and responsible ownership, because many of us are. And so I hear those cries too. So, but I am for doing something right away on our high caliber weapons.
Cool. So if elected, we know this district is a very large and, like we talked about, a very spread out, diverse district.
Right.
How do you think you'd best balance the demands of the congressional office calendar, and stay in contact with your constituents here back home?
Sure. I haven't had the opportunity to speak with Gene Green, but it was my understanding that he was a person who came home often, came home, I think, every weekend is the rumor in the community. I would love to do that as well. I know it'll be taxing, but my hope is to be in our parks, our schools, and our streets as much as possible. And why? Because that's where we can do the most good in this position. And I've been saying it, and other candidates are probably sick of hearing me on this, but the reality is I'll be one of 435 people up in the House of Representatives. I won't be able to have a legislative victory by my own or champion one by myself right away. But what I can promise to this community, and what I will do for this community, is to be there, boots on the ground, just like my campaign has been doing over the last 3 months. So I will make a concerted effort to be here. I will obviously have an office here. I will, I guess, continue to be a face, because the hope is that, especially the demographic between the ages of 18 and 45, actually know who their congressperson is. I've been walking around these streets, everywhere from Pasadena to South Humble to Magnolia Park. And when I ask the young people, did you know Gene Green? Do you know who your state senator is? Do you know who Sylvia Garcia is? The answer is no. And it's no. And I don't fault just the voters. I fault our leadership, and I hope to be different than that. I hope to be somebody that they know on a first name basis. So ultimately, the answer to your question is I will have a presence in this community physically, be in there. That's what I want to do.
So kind of along the lines of that, what do you feel are your unique characteristics that make you the right person for Congress for representing Congressional District 29?
Absolutely. I love this question because I'm from the district. And that's unique, actually, considering the folks who are running in this race. I grew up about a 5-minute drive from where we're sitting right now in the East End off of Wayside and 45 South. And so that area shaped me. That's where I had those formative experiences. And I think that knowing the people, knowing the experiences that they have, and knowing their challenges and the obstacles in their lives will allow me to better address their needs. I think also being a young person, and I say that at the age of 32. I'm told on the campaign trail that I'm young, and certainly relative to some of the other candidates. But I think that's a good thing. We're seeing a wave across the country of young people, especially millennials, stepping up. And I think that's a good thing. And specifically for this position again, the House of Representatives is a place where you're going to be one of a number of people, and it's only over time, building networks, sitting on a committee, that one can get a direct benefit to their constituents back home. So at 32, I can go up there and build those relationships and then get a direct financial benefit to this community. And I hope to do that. And I will say this on top of that, I am a person that will vote for term limits on his position. I don't want to be there forever. I don't think that anybody should be there for 25 years. I'd vote to term limit not only the Senate, but my own position in the House of Representatives. So those two things, being young and my experience of where I come from. And then I will add this, that I think I have the experience necessary to go up there and negotiate with these politicians. A lot of them are lawyers, and I've been negotiating with lawyers, some of the best in Texas over the last 6 years, submitting briefs to the 14th Court of Appeals, trying some cases, arguing in front of judges and juries. So I'm ready to go up there and be a voice for our people.
So we're getting to near the end of our time together, so we want to give you the last word. So we want you to speak directly to the voters in District 29 as to why you should be the candidate.
Sure. Well, first of all, we're coming up on the end of the campaign before the primary, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak directly to the people through this medium. Our campaign has been one that is grassroots, one that is where we have gone door to door, talking to the voters. We've been doing this since before Christmas, and we're going to do it all the way up until March 6th. I don't have a single political endorsement. I'm not a person who has PAC money. This is a campaign from the heart. My volunteers, and they are all volunteers, are people from this community, anywhere from Denver Harbor to North Shore to Magnolia Park to Pasadena. They are young people who believe that it's time for a change, that are tired of the old political leadership in our communities. And I'm hoping to champion their voice. I'm ready to serve. Like I said earlier, I've been a lawyer for the last 6 years, serving small businesses, homeowners, and again, negotiating with some of the best lawyers in town. I'm a product of this community out of the East End, and I will understand the challenges facing our people. You have a big choice, you the community, about whether you want to continue to do things the old way or you want to try something new. The one expression I get that I've gotten from old and young, every voter that I've talked to, is that it's time for new blood, that it's time for a change. And I'm asking you, the voters, to help me spark that change. And I promise you, I will continue to be in our parks, our schools, and our streets. So thank you, and I ask for your vote here, early voting until Friday or on March 6th. And I look forward to serving you, win or lose, in this community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garcia, and we'll be right back with our next candidate. Welcome back, and we're sitting with our candidate, Hector Morales. So, Mr. Morales, if you would tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks. My name is Hector Morales, and I'm running to represent you in the 29th Congressional District of Texas. I've grown up here my entire life, and after 26 years of an incumbent being in office, I felt that we needed to see a change in our community. We needed to see somebody that could represent the values that we truly needed in our district. We need to ensure that we're guaranteeing health care coverage to every single American, no matter their financial situation. We need to make sure that we're ensuring the finest public education available to all people, regardless of their status in this country. And we need to ensure that we're protecting the youth in our community while they're at school, while they're at home, especially now that we have this massive issue about gun control in this country. I think we need to capitalize on that. I grew up in this country. I was born in Monterrey, Mexico, and when I moved here to the age of 4, I was written off as another statistic. I wasn't supposed to succeed in anything in my life. I wasn't supposed to go to college or graduate. And my entire life, I knew that I wanted to do something in politics. I just didn't know what. And it wasn't until my senior year in high school when my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. This was in 2004, and the insurance company said it was not life-threatening, and they kicked her off the plan without a reason, just it was not life-threatening. It put my family into financial turmoil, and my mom made me promise to her, to my dad, and to my brother that my brother and I would go to college and graduate. My mom survived, but not before it bankrupted my family financially. Afterwards, I went to San Jacinto Community College for 2 years. I worked my butt off to make sure that I had the best education available. I transferred to UT Austin, where I was fortunate enough to be able to work for State Representative Kevin Bailey, which in turn landed me a position in the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign in 2008. Then with the Obama campaign, I worked for U.S. Candidate for Senate Rick Noriega in 2008. And in 2009, I ended up at the White House in the Office of Healthcare Reform, working on the Affordable Care Act. I graduated from UT Austin after that fellowship, and I came back home to become a school teacher. I've taught 3rd grade bilingual, 6th grade bilingual, and now high school government and economics. After so many years, I wanted to be the change that we wanted to see in this community, and that's why I'm running for Congress.
So one of the issues that you touched on was comprehensive immigration reform. What does that phrase mean to you, and what do you think are the first steps that Congress can do to achieve that?
So for immigration reform, we have to look at several different parts. First, we have to deal with DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. President Obama signed an executive order in his second term in office. We promised these young people that we would take care of them. We promised them that they would be safe if they told us who they were and where they were located. They believed us, and we have a moral responsibility. We have such a large duty to these young people to ensure that they continue to trust their government, that they trust the people that they've entrusted with their livelihood, their entire life. So we need to make sure that we stop treating DACA recipients like bargaining chips to build walls that are not going to happen. There's so many different legal requirements that have to be met, borders, there's a multiple number of items that are not going to get solved by this current precedent. We also have to make sure that we move forward after this to address the 11 million illegal people in this country, to make sure that they have a way to either remain in this country if they've been here for a while, and that they have a safe and productive path to citizenship. We're the greatest country on earth, and we should not be sending people back that want to make our community better, that want to contribute to our economy. We need to move forward. We need to fix our immigration system. We need to make sure that Congress acts swiftly on DACA, and then moving forward and securing citizenship and residency and legal status for these 11 million undocumented people in this country that are people, they're hard-working friends, family, brothers, and sisters. That's what we need to do.
Nice. You have a lot of experience with healthcare, and so one question is, healthcare reform has recently even been, more shaken up in the past couple of years. So what's your envision moving forward with current situation and your experience with the past situation, coming together, moving the healthcare system forward and, making it better for everyone? Like, how do you, now we've been on both sides, so like,
Right.
What do you?
So I believe that we need to move towards a single-payer healthcare system. We spend so much money as an industrialized nation to not have the best healthcare coverage, to guarantee the best healthcare coverage for every man, woman, and child in this country. Currently, the Affordable Care Act was a great start to moving towards universal health care. However, it did not go far enough to prevent insurance companies from continuing to raise premiums to such an amount that people had the ability to get them, but they couldn't afford them. That's not guaranteeing healthcare coverage. That's not taking care of people. We need to make sure that we're moving away from the pharmaceutical industry dictating and gouging people for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for life-saving medications that they need to survive. For example, a drug that might cost you $100, 90% of that drug cost goes towards not manufacturing the drug, but rather promoting the drug, paying kickbacks to doctors and physicians who are going to prescribe the drug, and lobbying costs. We need to move towards a single payer system. We cannot continue to have a system that places profits before people. We need to make sure that people are at the center of our healthcare system in this country, and Congress, government, we all have a responsibility to make sure that people have adequate healthcare, that they don't need to worry about affording. This should be a right. It's guaranteed.
So recently, the Department of Education announced that it would no longer investigate complaints from transgender students barred from school bathrooms that match their gender identity. What is your position on this issue?
I think that we have to stop and think about a system that we're currently in education, where we're going to tell a child who's figuring out themselves in life, who's saying, this is who I am, and telling them that's not who you are. That is not the role of government, to tell people what they are or are not. It's our job to nurture them and tell them, you are going to be protected in your school. We're not going to design policies to discriminate against you. Quite frankly, this should be a protected category under federal law. And the fact that it is not protected category sickens me, and it should sicken everybody, because this is how we get to the problems that we have today. We allow people to be disenfranchised. We allow them to be treated as less than human. And then 20 years down the line, we're wondering, well, why do they feel this way? Why are they not participating in the process? Why don't they feel like they belong? It's because we as a community, as a government, have made them feel like they don't belong. We need to make sure that if a student says that they're going to use a certain bathroom because that's who they are, then our job is to get out of the way and let them use that bathroom. If we have to make gender-neutral bathrooms, then so be it. But we should not continue to treat them as bargaining chips, as cheap political stunts and cheap political attacks. These are people we're talking about, not bargaining chips or cheap attacks.
So speaking of children's safety in schools and pretty much everyone's safety everywhere, what do you believe should be Congress's role in the gun violence, addressing gun violence in this country?
It's an extremely sensitive issue to talk about. Many of my students have parents who own guns. The Second Amendment does guarantee the right to bear arms. There is no question about that. The Supreme Court has ruled that recently in 2011 in the District of Columbia, that the Second Amendment does state the right to bear arms. You can own a gun. However, it doesn't say you have the right to own any gun that you want. We should be banning assault rifles. We should be banning any sort of weapon that could be used to cause chaos. If you need to use an AR-15 to hunt a rabbit, you probably shouldn't be hunting, much less with an AR-15. We're entering a new world where we have 3D printers. If we start, tracking guns and saying we're going to ban an AR-15, what's stopping a really, really smart person from going online, putting a 3D print together and saying, here, let's go ahead and print a 3D gun now. We have that happen now. So we need to make sure that we're not being reactive to the issues, but rather proactive. We need to make sure that we're banning assault rifles. We can begin with AR-15, but we also have to make sure that we're tracking ammunition to make sure that in this day and age, if a law enforcement officer goes to a scene of a crime, they're able to take shell casings, say there's a serial number on here, we're going to trace this down to the person that bought it, when they bought it. We can do it for everything else, and we should definitely be doing this for guns.
So if elected, how would you balance the demands of a congressional calendar with staying in touch of the needs of the people in your district?
So I'm a school teacher, and I practically work 2 full-time jobs. Running this campaign, we've been going since January of 2017. I teach high school government and economics, and that's my number one job, my number one priority. They're my students. And when we win this election, when we win in March and we move to November and win that election, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing, which is engaging the community, the people that have been forgotten. We have 2 different worlds, the worlds of the politically affluent and the world that people just kind of live in, like, politics happens, it happens on TV. We need to make sure that we're engaging young people. We're going to make sure that those at-risk students don't look at the students that are going to college and say, well, nobody cared about me. I am committing right now that when we get elected, we're going to start a pilot program, and we're going to push it out to all the other members of Congress and offer them the opportunity to send our at-risk students to a paid internship in Washington, D.C. so they can see what it is that government is doing for them, so they can experience what they haven't experienced. Some of these kids are living in poverty. They don't know what lurks outside of their neighborhood, what lurks outside of their school district, much less their city or state. We're going to make sure that we're going to teach people. We're going to teach the young people in this community and anyone else that wants to learn. This is what government does. This is what we're here to serve you, not the other way around. And we're going to make sure that we go to all the civic meetings around the area, even outside of the district, because it's important for people to know that their neighboring congressional district is there to help them. We saw that when we had Harvey. We saw the outpour of support from different congressional leaders. Doesn't matter if you were red or blue, R or D, they supported each other. So we're going to make sure that we continue to foster those relationships. And I look forward to working with Congressman Green on that transition period.
So we're getting to the end of our time together, so we want to give you the last word. So we want you to take about a minute to speak directly to the voters in District 29 and say why you should be the candidate.
So this election is a pivotal point in our history as a congressional district. In 1992, this district was created to make sure that we elected a Latino or Latina to the United States House of Representatives. Congressman Green has done a phenomenal job addressing the small issues in our community. We have far pressing issues that face our community to this day. I have unwavering support for a universal healthcare system. I have unwavering support for public education, ensuring that we're guaranteeing higher education to students that are well qualified and that want to go to school. I am committing right now to telling you that I will not be in Congress for 26 years. I believe that we should be empowering the people in our community. We shouldn't be buying elections. This shouldn't be a monarchy where things are handed down to people. People have to work for them. And I've worked hard for all of you while I've served you at Pasadena ISD and Aldine ISD teaching your students. I've done that when I was at community college, and you've given me love and compassion when my family was in need. I want to share that with you. This isn't about me, it's about us and the path that we want to take to move forward. I will never be bought out by special interests. I have never accepted a cent of corporate or PAC money, and I will continue to not accept that money because my campaign has always been powered by people and not special interests. And I hope that you will join us if you haven't already done so. And let's move our district together. If we have disagreements, let's talk about those disagreements. But we will never waver on the things that we care about, the policies that we stand for, and the principles that we have as common, decent human beings. My name is Hector Morales, and I hope to earn your support in the 29th Congressional District race on March the 6th.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Morales, and we'll be right back with our next candidate. Welcome back, and we'll now turn to our next candidate, Mr. Aaronoff. Mr. Aaronoff, please give us a moment to learn a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you. I'm a lifelong Houstonian, graduate of Bel Air High School and University of Houston. Been active in Harris County, Texas Republican Party politics for almost 40 years. I've served on the many boards. I was appointed by Mayor Whitmire to be on the board and the second president of this organization, the media. It used to be called Access Houston. And then I've served on the Harris County Housing Authority, and I've also served as chairman of the Texas State Purchasing and General Services Commission appointed by Governor Clements. I currently serve as the honorary consul general for the country of Hungary, and I've been doing that for over a dozen years. And in that capacity, I serve as the secretary for the 95-member Council Corps of Houston.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Congress has struggled for some time now to tackle comprehensive immigration reform. What does that phrase mean to you, and what do you think are the first steps to address that issue?
That's one of the main reasons I'm running for Congress. I am distressed at the message the Republican Party is giving out to the Hispanic community. I'm going to give a message of inclusion and welcoming. We want people to come here who want to work, play by the rules, come here legally, but the problem is it's almost impossible for them to come here legally. And that's why people get in the back of a van and die in Victoria, Texas, where 18 kids died. And that was one of the big motivators for me, because they shouldn't have to do that. Now, I'm angry at their country that won't create an economy that's so corrupt. It won't create an economy where they can get a job and have a future, so they have to come here. But I'm disappointed in my country that we make it impossible for them to come here. So as far as immigration reform, I want the Congress to allow these 2 million young people who came here to get here legally with a pathway to citizenship. And then if there are jobs available, I want to let people come here on a visa like the old Bracero program, where they could come and go however they wanted. But it's so important. That's the future of this country. And they're not getting that message from the Republican Party, and I will give that message from the Republican because I'm a committed Republican.
Good. So recently, the Department of Education announced that it will no longer investigate civil rights complaints made by transgender students that have been barred from school restrooms that match their gender identity. What is your position on this issue?
Well, I think the whole transgender thing is a fraud. I think if you're a man physically. They say that we who think global warming is a fraud don't believe in science. Well, what can be less believing in science than to believe that a man can become a woman? To say that a man can have a baby, you can identify as a man and have a baby, I find that absurd and disingenuous. I mean, how can you change that? You can't. So the science deniers are people who say if you have XY chromosomes, you can still be a woman. That's not the case. I mean, you don't see it happen in the animal world. So I think it's pandering to a group of people who may have, I think, an emotional problem, and they need some sort of help to overcome it, rather than pandering to them. You didn't expect that answer, did you?
Brandon, your next one?
So, in light of what happened in Parkland, Florida, what do you believe should be Congress's role when it comes to addressing gun violence?
Well, I think the failure of the FBI and the police department, they were called out to the man's house 40 times. That's insane. And they let this man still be there. I think that they have so many rules and laws to protect people, like the HIPAA laws, where you can't give information on people who are having issues. And I think that those need to be changed so that the government can step in when there's signs of an impending risk here. And it's a failure of government, not a failure of gun control.
So healthcare, another hot topic the past couple of years. Healthcare reform is something that Congress has been grappled with for a little while. So what's your vision on improving the healthcare system and healthcare reform?
Well, when I had my first child, I paid about $1,200 for his birth because all I had was major medical. And the working man could afford $1,200 back in the late 60s. By the time I had my third child, the government stepped in and said, you must cover maternity in your insurance. So I paid $150. I thought it was a pretty good deal. Cost $10,000 to deliver my third baby.
Wow.
Somebody's paying for it. And so my position is get the government out of health care. Let people negotiate with their doctors, with their insurance companies. All the government does is add layers of bureaucracy so that people can't get treatment they need sometimes. The reason it's so expensive is because of all the government interference in it. The government has taken the market out of it. And I think that's tragic, that shouldn't have happened.
So if elected, how would you balance the demands of both a congressional calendar as well as meeting the needs of the people of your district?
United Airlines? I mean, that's what every other congressman does, and that's the job. It's what the government, the people of the country would be paying me to do. I mean, I watch many of my friends, they fly home to Houston every Friday and back to Washington every Tuesday. So, I mean, that's United Airlines is the best answer to that question.
It's a good one. So our nation right now has been divided, or in recent years, by polarizing political rhetoric and leaders in Washington who appear unwilling to work with each other. If elected, how would you address this issue, and how will it affect your approach to representing the 29th District?
One of my best friends is that Congressman Al Green, and we agree on nothing. But we dialogue for years. For many years, he and I would have lunch before he was a congressman 4 times a year, and I'd bring leaders from the Republican Party because I wanted to teach him an understanding of who the Republicans are, that we don't want to kill little black kids, we want to empower them. And he has said to me that when he got to Congress, it sort of helped him understand more of the Republicans' perspective, that we're not evil and that we just believe in smaller government rather than the government controlling people's lives.
So kind of along the lines of that, what is your position when it comes to issues of police brutality as it's related to the Black Lives Matter movement?
I'm opposed to police brutality. But as far as the Black Lives movement, I think that again is just using the media to manipulate society, that all lives matter, but somebody says it's offensive to say all lives matter. That's not true. That's evil to say all lives matter is a racist statement. So nobody should be shot by a cop for not doing anything, but when somebody is fighting a cop, you should shoot him if there's no other way to stop him.
What was I going to ask?
You want me to ask it?
No.
I'll ask you a question.
Oh, gosh,
I'll ask Brandon a question.
Your district that you're running for is a very large, kind of spread out district. Do you have any thoughts or procedures on how you could bring economic development to the district?
Well, you've got the port there, you've got the refineries there, I guess more fracking so we can have more oil to run through the refineries and empower the refineries to grow and build. You've got tremendous warehouse capacity there. The port, everything should be revolving around the port there as far as I see it. I mean, I spent 27 years in business in the district with the business inside the port of Houston. I used to load a lot of ships there of scrap steel and shipped them to Mexico. And so I know the area well, I know the people well, and the economic development is there from the port, and everything else branches out from that.
I know we missed out on Amazon, and that was such a great...
Well,
could have been.
It's you know, I don't know if that's going to be a very permanent thing either. I mean, Amazon today is the big giant, but I watched General Motors go bankrupt too, and things change, and it's dynamic, and you know, I just believe that Amazon, with all their requirements and all that, would have been too much for this city. The traffic is horrible here anyway today. We don't need to create that kind of traffic without creating infrastructure, but look, I'm a big user of Amazon. I love the convenience of it.
Yeah.
So I agree it's a shame we didn't get them, but we've got enough other stuff. We have such an entrepreneurial spirit in this city.
What is your position on raising the minimum wage?
I'm opposed to it. I'm in favor of getting rid of it. If it's a good thing, why not make it $100 an hour? Because that's absurd. You can't do it because nobody will have a job. Well, go to $50 an hour. Some people will have a job. So the point of that is that as the minimum wage goes down, more and more people will get jobs. I think the government should never set up between a man who wants to sell his labor and a man who wants to buy it. It's not the government's business.
But what are some of the ways that
Did I convince you? I'll make you a conservative before I leave here.
I'm nonpartisan.
as is the League of Women Voters?
Well, where are the women? That's the other question. I was expecting two beautiful women instead of two handsome men.
Oh, okay, I was like, all right.
Well, we are nearing the end of our time together, so we do want to give you the ability to speak directly to the voters in District 29 as to why you should be their candidate.
I should be the candidate in District 29 because I understand the reasons you or your family left the country in Latin America that you left. Because they were not countries of law, they were not countries being ruled by the people, they were being ruled by a caudillo who does whatever he wants, and unless you're on his inside track, you're in trouble there. So you come here to be a nation of laws and to live in a nation of laws, and that's what the United States is. And my concern is that the Democratic Party doesn't care about laws. They care more about power. I say that with a reference to DACA, how totally illegally President Obama allows people to stay here. The end was the correct end, but it should have been done legally. So if you want to live in a country that's run by laws, vote for a Republican, because we respect the laws, we follow the laws. We don't appoint people to the Constitution who say, well, it should be changed. It's, look at the South African Constitution. We believe in the Constitution. That's what made this country so great. It will continue to make this country so great as long as the people running the country do not ignore the rule of law. And the rule of law is made by Congress and the majority of the people. Thank you very much. And I'm Philip Aaronoff in the 29th District Republican primary. Thank you for thinking of considering voting for me.
And thank you for joining us, Mr. Aaronoff. Just to remind all of the voters that voting is currently going on right now for all the primaries. You can go to vote411.org for more information about our candidates and for all of the elections. We'll be right back, and we'll be right back with our next candidate. Welcome back, and we're here with our last candidate, Tahir Javed. So we'll go to Mr. Javed. Welcome.
The camera.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, if you will give us a minute to learn a little bit about yourself and why you're running for this election.
Well, I'm an immigrant who came to U.S. in early 20s and started from the bottom. My first job was mopping the floor. I lived, thinking out of the box and working hard, and breaking all the barriers. And today, I have about 24 plus companies and thousands of employees working for me, and they're making, living wages and all that. That's exactly what I wanted to do for District 29. I want the people of District 29 to have a living wages. I want District 29 to have health care. This is broken health care. We only got one hospital left there. District 29 deserves better education programs. We have 41% high school dropout in District 29. So, providing better high-paid jobs to the district. So I want the people see me as an example and understand that the American dream is still in the reach, and they can pursue that, and they can have it too. And that's exactly what we will do in our district. We will bring better health care, we will bring high-paid jobs, and we will work on education, and we will have after-school programs, we will have early education program where we will bring confidence back in the kids so they can go to school to learn and they get ahead. And we need to get our people in District 29 ahead. We are left behind, and it's left behind real bad. No, no one can live with $36,000. That's poverty. Now, with all these circumstances, when Hurricane Harvey or anything of that sort hit you, you're basically broken. Now, in District 29, basically all Houston, but in District 29, because their income was low, now with Harvey, they're still sitting, waiting for their help. They're really in a bad situation. And that's what I will go to work and make sure that we'll bring the prosperity, we'll bring District 29 to the level where not $36,000 income, it should be minimum as the national income of $55,000. Now, in Houston, there are other districts have $70,000, $85,000, and $90,000 income. Within the same city, why we have this sort of a discrimination? Why we don't have the clean air in District 29? Why we don't have a better infrastructure there? So I'm running to fix all these problems. I'm running to bring this the situation in the limelight, so the people who are decision makers, they work with me. We bring some special funding. We do some pilot programs where we will uplift the lifestyle in the District 29. That's why I'm running.
Excellent. So one of the issues that you kind of hint on is that Congress has struggled for some time when it comes to comprehensive immigration reform. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the ways in which we can achieve that, and what do you feel is the first step?
Well, the first step is basically we need to recognize the DACA recipient. We need to give them the pathway to citizenship. We need to talk about dreamers. And then if we can do it all together, it's great. If not, then right after this, we need to comprehensive immigration reforms where we bring millions of the peoples. They are not in the mainstream. We need to bring them in the same economy. And that's healthy for our country. It's healthy for our economy. It's healthy for the society. People are living in fear. They are raising their children while they are in fear. Some of the DACA recipients are teachers in the classrooms, and they're teaching our next generation. And if the person is in fear and living in a shadow, and then you have your future children in their hands, what kind of education and what kind of the brought up you will have for your next generation? We need to give a right to everybody to live an American dream, to live like anybody else. We need to stop discriminating and start basically giving opportunities to everybody to prosper.
You talked about healthcare and everything in District 29. And we wanting more hospitals because there's only one currently.
Yes, sir.
So overall in the nation, what's your vision for improving the healthcare system in the United States, and then additionally, in your district?
Well, ultimately, Medicare for all should be the solution. Healthcare is people's right. Why they struggle to heal? I have yesterday a good friend of mine. He has a seizure attack and he went to hospital, and we went to see him in the hospital. You know what? Why he had this attack? Because he did not take his pill for 2-3 days. He could not afford it. This is sad. There are so many other cases like prescription drugs are out of reach. I have met so many people, in the elderly population in senior livings. They pick and choose in last 4 or 5 days of their month, either the pill or the rent or the food. Why we have, we kept them in a shortage of 4 or 5 days of living every month. This is a cycle they live. I think they have a fear to get into the last week of the month. We need to fix that. This is not the United States we're supposed to be having. This is not the lifestyle we should have. And healthcare, I tell you what, it's so sad in District 29, if there is a 911 called, the patient will be taken to Baytown. We're talking about good 55 minutes when you have all these, when you get down on Garth Road and have all these lights go through, or if there's a traffic and it's stuck, then we're basically playing with people's life. This is not fair. This is absolutely not fair for the people in District 29. We need to fix healthcare, and I have already started. I'm not waiting till I get elected. We have already emergency health unit in Galena Park. We did the groundbreaking. I have started 7 absolutely free healthcare clinics in the church. It's very easy, we walked into the church. Can you give us the space? Every Sunday, there's a 60, 70 patients we've seen. It doesn't cost them anything. Now, this is a good stuff. Why? Because people linger on going to the hospital or going to the clinics. Now, when you catch your disease on the first 1 or 2 or day 3, that you with 4 days or 5 days of prescription drug, you're done with it. Otherwise, it takes from one to the other, and then they end up getting admitted in the hospital, and there is no hospital to admit. They put them in the observation for a long time. They keep them in the ERs. Now, the patient is walked in with a one small little deal, and then next thing you know that they got pneumonia. This is absolutely unacceptable. We cannot take that in District 29. I will fight for it, and I will fix it. I will make sure that we will open 1 or 2 hospitals in next few months, not a year, because this is not a luxury. This is a necessity. We have to take care of people's health. We need to make sure when someone is in need, they get treated. They don't get stuck. And now so many areas, there are railroads, and we have to bring the healthcare to their doorstep. And I have done it 28 times in underserved areas, and I will do it in my district. And we will make sure that the people will have the right healthcare solutions in District 29.
So recently, the Department of Education announced that it will no longer investigate civil rights complaints from transgender students barred from school bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity. What is your position on this issue?
Well, this is not government's job. People has a right to keep their identity, and this is how it should be. And when it comes to the gay kids, and it's very sensitive. We need to make sure that they don't, same thing, we don't want to keep anybody in our community in any sort of fear or any sort of stress. This is unhealthy, and we need to stop that. Any kind of discrimination, I will be the strongest voice against it.
So, okay, let's talk about fear and things in schools. Everyone's talking about Florida right now, and the gun violence in this country. What do you believe should be Congress's role in addressing this issue?
We need to strengthen when the purchase of gun, stronger background check and behavioral health. We have to make sure the people are purchasing the guns, they don't have any mental issues. That's step 1. Step 2, the reselling of the guns. We need to make some laws that one guy is handing over to the other person, goes through the same check and balances. Now, the third step, I believe, we can make it mandatory that if someone owns a gun, we can ask them to buy a safe. Put the guns in the safe, so it's out of the hands of the kids. If you realize that mostly it's the children, or the young adults. Now, furthermore, I would encourage if we can change the age to 21. As 19-year-old, you cannot buy beer, but you can buy a gun. So right. there are preventions we can do. I understand it's part of the culture, but we need. Okay, it's part of our culture to drive a car too. So what we do? Let's pick up the speed limit and let them drive whatever the speed they wanted to drive and whatever the road. And one guy said, I wanted to drive on a one-way. I mean, we need to make strict rules. That's all it is. And when we put the check and balances, I think we can prevent all these situations. If I have a gun, this is my responsibility to make sure the gun is in a safe place. No one will steal it and take it and go and do whatever they want to do with it.
So we're nearing the end of our time together, so we want to give you the last word and speak directly to the voters in District 29. So if you'll take about a minute to say why you should be the candidate for the District 29 race.
Well, my message to the people in District 29, you are given a choice. You are given a choice to pick up your next representative. If you think the $36,000 income is great, if you think the one hospital is absolutely fine, if you think 41% high school dropout is no problem, then maybe there is no change needed. But I don't believe so. We deserve better. District 29 deserves better education, better health care, better jobs. And along with it, I will further say that I'm an immigrant who has lived a life of an immigrant. I was held at the airport several times in that special little room. I was randomly picked hundreds of times in my life. And I understand why and how this fear is affecting us in our families. We need to find the pathway to citizenship for the DACA recipients and dreamers. And I will be the candidate speaking high enough and loud enough and strong enough to make sure. And I have brought Senator Schumer to District 29 and put him in front of the dreamers, and he spoke and he promised us that he will go back and put this thing in the front. I have done healthcare several times in my life in underserved areas, and I promise you one more time we will fix healthcare in District 29. I was one of a teacher in my life, and I understand early education is important for our children so they can go ahead. Once they feel that they are ahead, they will perform better, and that will be their pathway to the better future. And most importantly, I have created thousands of jobs in my life, and I strongly believe people deserve better. We need to increase minimum wages. We need to bring them better pay jobs, and we need to bring prosperity in District 29. We are left behind, and we will not be left behind. We need to be where everybody else is. 55,000 is minimum household income should be in District 29. I will be the person fighting for that. I need your vote. Tahir, Javed, I'm #1 on the ballot, and I hope I'll earn your vote and earn your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Javed, for joining us tonight. Thank you all for watching tonight's conversation with the candidates from Texas Congressional District 29. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Houston, we'd like to thank you for watching. On behalf of Greg Griffin, I'm Brandon Mack. Once again, thank you all, and please go out and vote in all of the primaries. The early voting is going on right now and will go on until Friday, and then March 6th is Election Day. You can go to vote411.org for more information. Thank you, and have a good night.